especially for improving public service expenditures for governments, I think with up to 60 billion euros that can be saved up until 2025. It's actually vital in a matter of life and death, improving access to hospitals, medical labs, improving access to information about quality nutrition, information about chronic disease. So beyond even the economic impact, the social impact is huge and massive. There is another sector which is also very close to my heart, which is retail. And the reason is, before becoming a venture capital investor myself, I used to be a tech entrepreneur, and I co-founded what is today the largest marketplace in Africa, which is listed on Wall Street. And in a matter of 6 to 7 years, we have created 5,000 direct jobs, but most excitingly, we enabled roughly 500,000 SMEs to leverage technology and be able to really serve the consumers, giving them products in terms of choice, in terms of quality, and in terms of convenience. And it's also very important, because if you are lucky enough to be born in the US, you actually have there today one retail outlet for every 400 inhabitants. In Africa today, we have one retail outlet for every 60,000 inhabitants. So here, technology also becomes a way to massify the access to goods. And it's not only about selling, smartphones and very expensive smartphones. I was actually very proud to have some, in Black Friday 2015, when I was leading our company in Nigeria, to have, pounded yam, which is something that people will daily eat there, being a top seller on the platform as well. So access to products is really also leapfrogged in a very strong way in Africa today. And beyond retail, you actually have everything around global trade and value chains. It's always very frustrating for me to see these numbers about African inclusion in global trade. We are actually less than 3%, 3 to 5% of global trade, which doesn't make sense. And when I look at the reasons why, one of the aspects is because of the very high logistics cost. In the US, usually it takes, I think, 6 to 7% of the cost of a product to move goods. In Africa, in East Africa, for instance, it can be as high as 75% to move goods. So how can you be competitive as an African SME to trade globally when it's this expensive to move goods from one point to another? And with my venture capital fund, for instance, we have started to invest 18 months ago in a platform in Côte d'Ivoire. And the reason why was that basically you have so many farmers that don't have the opportunity to sell their products because they stay rotten on their stem. And actually in Africa you have as much food waste as in Europe, but it happens upstream because the products are not moving fast enough into the value chains. And then they are creating the very, very bad impact because environmentally it's already produced and it's rotten. Socially, the farmer has worked, has sweated, and he's not getting his income back. And economically, of course, it creates a huge waste. And one of the other portfolio companies that is very exciting to me is actually in East Africa. It's called Twiga Foods. And basically what we have been doing through the investment is to help thousands of Kenyan SMEs and farmers in particular get higher wages because you reduce the number of intermediaries, while reducing the final cost to the end users. We call it mom and pop stores. So there are people that are selling on the streets fruits and vegetables, and they started with bananas. So it's better for the farmer with better wages. It's better for the end customer and the SME selling on the street because the cost is better. It's also better for the planet because usually I think food waste in the East Africa is across 45% of the production, and here it was brought down to 15% post-harvest loss. So it's really critical. And beyond agriculture, you also have, of course, every kind of basic services, government, because at some point you don't have access to internet and it's all promise of democratization if you don't have, for instance, an ID.